Card King, here I come. Hello, music fans, music collectors, and all hobbyists. Welcome to the Card King Sports and Variety Show. I am your host, the Catman, Brian Cataquet, a.k.a. the Card King. We are live on ABC's KMET 1490 AM.com, your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast. I thank everyone for tuning in this morning. On the telephone line, I welcome to the program from the 1980s power pop melodic rock band Novo Combo. I welcome in acclaimed guitarist and vocalist Jack Griffith. Jack, great to have you. Thanks for being on.
Great to be here, Brian. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, Jack. Oh, yeah, everything's good. Honor to have you. And, you know, Jack, you have an impressive resume I'm reading here, performing with the likes of Mick Jagger, Santana, and so many others. But before I get to that, let's inform the audience about the band's new release. Go ahead, take it away.
Okay, great. We just released a new record called 45 West 55th. It's Michael Shreves, the original drummer from Santana, Pete Hewlett from Billy Joel's band, and Stephen Dees, original bass player from Hall & Oates. And we put this band together back in the 80s, and, you know, we had some mild success. Then, you know, the smart bombs hit us, and we broke up. And so we just got back together to do a new record. We all felt like we had some unfinished business, and we put this new record together, and we just released it. And, you know, so we're sending it out to the world.
Right, and the new album, again, is called 45 West 55th. And talk about how the title came about.
Okay, well, when we first got together, that's where Michael lived in Manhattan. That was his address on 55th Street. And so when we all got to New York, you know, we all lived in Michael's apartment for, I don't know, we were there about 6 or 8 months in the beginning. And we lived there and rehearsed every day in Manhattan at SIR. And, you know, it took us about 6 months, and then we got signed, and so and we were able to get our own places after that. But we just decided to go back to the origin of the band, and I think it was Steven's idea to name it that. And we all thought it was cool, you know.
And, you know, for those listening that may not know who Michael Shreves is, I mean, this guy's a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee, right?
No doubt, yes. He's the original drummer from Santana, the famous Woodstock drummer. That's Michael.
Unbelievable. So now, so how did so talk about how this all the tracks on this album got together, was put together. I believe you had a lot of material shelved away, which is released that listeners can hear in this latest release, right?
Right. Part of the record is stuff that we had in the can that we cut in the 80s. And we had some live to 2-track recordings that we cut in really great studios in New York. And, you know, we went back and reviewed it, and it was like, wow, you know, these live 2-tracks sound better than some of the stuff we put on the original record. So we just really felt like people should hear it. And Stephen was going through all his things, and he found it. He had a friend that passed, so he was going through his collections trying to find music, and he came across some of the original tapes and recordings that we had, and he's like, wow. So he contacted all of us and said, let's get together and release this. And so it was a good idea. And then we also added some new stuff. Half the record is new stuff, and 4 or 5 songs is stuff that we had in the can. And then we also have 2 live pieces on it. It was a piece that was on the King Biscuit Hour that we cut at Park West in Chicago. And Michael has a drum solo. He was reluctant to put a drum solo on the record, but I begged him to do it because, after all, he is Michael Shreves. You know,
oh, absolutely.
And I felt like you know, he's one of the greatest drummers of all time, and it would just be a sin not to put it on there, you know. Because they sort of became taboo over time, you know, drum solos, you know. But it's a great drum solo.
No question about it. And, I have the album in front of me. You have 13 tracks, and I see your name is associated with a few of them, like the first track, Don't Throw Your Love Away. Talk about how that piece got together.
Well, that was a piece that I had just composed in my home studio. Basically, I had a rhythm soundtrack. And I had done it with a drum machine and a keyboard bass and all that stuff. And the guys really liked it. And I had half the song kind of finished, and then I had Pete help me out with it. And so Pete and I got together, and Pete wrote the bridge, and he helped me sing. We sang it together, and then we sent it out to Seattle. And Michael put drum tracks on it, and Steve put a real bass on it, and it just came to life. Really nice, sort of progressive rock song. I think it's pretty cool.
Very, very cool. And then another track that has your name associated with it is "Please Don't Do That."
Right. Well, that was mainly Steven's song. Steven and I got together, and we worked it out together. We were just doing a nice reggae feel we wanted to do, and I didn't have much to do with the lyrics. The only credit I got on it was sort of pretty much in the music and the arrangement,
Right, and like you mentioned, Access Live, that has your name all over it. And was that recorded? Talk about how the birth of Access Live came about. Was that on a live radio show, something to that effect?
It was the King Biscuit Hour, and we were playing live in Chicago at Park West, really nice big club up there. They recorded it on the radio. We didn't even know that it was being recorded when we were playing it, actually. I don't think I did. And so anyway, we found it later, and we liked it a lot, and said, well, the quality was good because it was King Biscuit, And so we put it on there. Another reason is because when we played live, it was a high-energy song that introduced Michael's drum solo, right? And so we used it basically for that purpose, too, because it was a good lead-in for him to take a solo.
And then Long, Long Road is the other track. That's Griffith and Dees together, right?
Yep. See, when we first got together, Michael and Steven were down in Miami. This is a bit of a story. I answered an ad. I was in L.A., and I just left L.A. to go and hang out in Miami for a while. And I was looking for a job, so I answered an ad. It was called Rags to Riches, and it was just for a hotel band, right? So I go do this audition, and it was like this big old mafioso guy telling whatever the girl wants, and the girl singer, so I'm giving them my best R&B and playing guitar for them. And they said, okay, we'll call you later. And what it was sort of like a front. Michael and Steven had people, looking out, testing these guitar players because they didn't really want to confront them just yet. And so that evening when I got home, Steven calls me. Says, hey, Jack, this is Stephen Dees, man. We heard you're really good, man. Won't you come down and jam with us tomorrow? So I was like, okay, sure. And my story's similar to Michael's story with Santana because I went down and I jammed that day. We jammed all day long. So, hey, you want to come back and jam tomorrow? So we jammed the second day, all day long. Same way, third day, all day long. Fourth day, all day long. And Michael finally says, Jack, we're putting a band together. You want to be in it? It's like, duh. Well, certainly, like he said, I'll check my schedule. It was pretty funny.
Now,
anyway, 2 days later, I'm in Manhattan, and we're staying at 45 West 55th Street. But during that period, Steve and I were getting together on a lot of reggae kind of feels, that kind of thing. And that's how that song came about.
Yeah, and we got to remember that the Detroit News back in 1981, they honored the Novo Combo Best New Band of the Year. I mean, you guys won the winning Best Single of the Year, right, with Up Periscope.
Yeah. We had a lot of success in the early days, and plus, we were working Manhattan, so we were a pretty famous Manhattan band, and then once we went on the road and started touring, and released the record, we started getting all these accolades. It was pretty wonderful, I remember we played a club in Detroit called Tracks. And I don't know, actually I just found out about this like 2 months ago. But I guess it was from that gig when we played in town,
And what about Privates in New York City? That was another club you guys were at, right?
Yes, Privates. See, Privates was a really great place because this was late in '79, early '80s, and reggae was really taking off. Marley and Jimmy Cliff and all this great stuff, and it was just part of an evolution of music changing. And everybody was really becoming aware of the hip reggae stuff. And it was just such a great club. And I remember, when I found out we were going to play there, I was really happy. It was a really large ballroom nightclub. Yeah, I think we played there a couple times. Yeah.
And Jack, you were right there in New York City, late 70s, like you said, and early 80s, and that was really the rise of the punk rock genre, with CBGBs. Did you feel that the band had a lot of competition in the East Coast back then?
Oh, yeah. Manhattan's, just thousands of bands every night, from all over and everywhere. The input was incredible because you could just go out any night and see 5 or 10 bands, And yeah, it was pretty wonderful. A lot of competition, no doubt. Of course, we didn't really let that bother us because we were just sort of focused on what we were doing, And we knew we would be accepted because it was pretty good stuff, And so when we started playing the city, we started out in the bars, and then next thing you know, we're playing the Dr. Pepper Festival in Central Park, playing the Ritz, Privates, Palladium, all the big rooms, the Savoy. We actually played Bonds with the Clash. We played every major venue in Manhattan, with maybe the exception of Madison Square Garden. We hadn't gotten there yet, but we made it everywhere else,
Yeah, and I'm originally from New York City, but, back then there was really no bands playing like a jazz fusion mix, which you guys really brought to fruition. You brought it out, in New York City. There was no bands I remember back in '79 playing that type of music.
Yeah, it was a natural evolution, I think, even the Police, Sting and Andy, they came from that place. They had a fusion background. And so did I. I studied jazz for years with some great jazz musicians. And when I first started, when I first found out I was going to play with Michael, I was really stoked. Oh, cool, man, we'll play some fusion. And then they're like, no, we want to put a pop group together. It's like, oh, okay, well, I can do that. So that's what we did.
Man, so I want to play a little clip of one of your new songs from the album, but I want to ask you a couple of questions. Mick Jagger, okay. How did you get the opportunity to be in contact with Mick Jagger?
Well, it was definitely directly through Michael. Michael and Mick were friends. Mick had played on a lot of the Stones' music. He had played percussion on Some Girls, and him and Carabella, and. So anyway, when I got there, it was like, hey, man, let's go down and visit Chris Kimsey. I'm like, Chris Kimsey, wow, produced the Rolling Stones, So I go down there and I'm hanging out in the studio. This is 2 weeks after I'm in New York City. And we go down to the studio, and I meet Chris, and I'm hanging out at the Hit Factory. And I'm just sitting there, and this shadow hovered over me. And I turned around and looked. And it was Jagger. It's like, oh, it's really him, in the flesh, So I got to meet him at that moment. And then we became friends, all of us, And when Novo was in the studio, Mick and Earl McGrath, who was once a manager for the Stones, they'd come in and hang out with us all the time in the studio. So it was really, really cool. Great to be around.
Oh, my gosh. And then Carlos Santana.
Yeah. Carlos came in and played with us at the Ritz. And that was pretty nice. A little intimidating for me because he was like my hero, and we're playing at the Ritz, and he challenges me to trade fours, and I'm going, oh, my God. I don't want to trade fours with Carlos, but I did, and it was pretty nice. It was a great time.
Man, and another artist, legendary artist, Gary Moore.
Yeah, we toured with Gary and Greg Lake. That was an extensive tour. It was about like a 3-month tour we did together. And wow, what a beautiful man and player he was. The greatest. I'll tell you what Gary taught me. If you want to play like Gary, you got to practice 9 hours a day. The cat played all day long. All he did was play.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Religiously, 9 hours a day. You know.
and who were some of like your early guitar idols?
Me, I came up in the '60s, digging Hendrix and Page. You know, pretty much those two were the ones. I tried to learn everything they played. Of course, I was aware of all the other players, a lot of great players, and then I got into McLaughlin in later years, later '70s. Actually, early '70s, a friend of mine turned me on to Down on the Corner, a Miles Davis album, and I heard that guitar work. I was just totally impressed with John. Funny thing, I got to meet him, and I didn't even know that it was him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he was just a guy in the room, and I didn't. And he's a really handsome fellow, but in real life he just looks different than the pictures, And I wasn't sure if it was him. As it turned out, it was him.
He's a cool guy, huh?
Oh, super cool.
We're talking with Jack Griffith of Novo Combo, vocalist, guitarist extraordinaire. And, Jack, we have a little clip of one of the songs on your new release titled 45 West 55th. Let's take a listen.
Okay, great. Give it a spin.
The band, Novo Combo, 45 West 55th is the album. Jack Griffith is with us. What can you tell us about that, Jack?
That was one of those songs that was live. That was live to 2-track. We cut it at Media Sound in New York. And, it was live to 2-track. It's just pretty impressive. That's the kind of energy we had when we played live, Just, we were all about really just being able to deliver the song, rather than, big productions and all that kind of stuff. And so it kind of gave us a nice raw sound. I think that's what people liked about us, was we just did it, on the spot, so.
No, I love this. I love it. Now, for the listeners listening, Jack, where can they purchase this new album? It's on all platforms?
All platforms. Go to novocombo.com. Yeah.
And there you have it. And, Jack, before I let you go, I was reading a post you did, which was interesting, your selection of the most influential record albums that that left an impact on musical journey. Do you have that list? Right. Can you go through with us some of them? Do you have the list with you?
I don't have it with me at hand, but I can just basically tell you.
Go ahead.
It was about all the great hit records that influenced me from the time I Want to Hold Your Hand, to All Right Now, Led Zeppelin, A Whole Lot of Love, of course, The Police, Roxanne, just major hit records, and Hendrix, Purple Haze, and all these great singles. And like the first 10 was just kind of that to me, was just the most impressive hit records that I had ever heard. From the time
the first one you have Meet the Beatles was the first one.
Yes, because I Want to Hold Your Hand and all that stuff. The Beatles are just the greatest thing that ever hit the world. And
right, and then two was Jimi Hendrix.
I grew up in a musical family, and my dad was a country music singer. So when I was really young, when I was 9 years old, I was playing civic arenas with people like Buck Owens and the Buckaroos. So I've always been in music. And then my dad wanted me to be in country music, but as soon as I heard Elvis the first time, it was like, hey, I don't know about this country stuff anymore. So, it was like Elvis and then the Beatles and, and all the great bands after that, Hendrix in the 60s, and, of course, the Stones, the Rolling Stones. And so basically my top 10 was just all those great hit records,
And, of course, you got to put Novo Combo's debut album, which you did,
Absolutely.
ranked number 10.
Absolutely, yeah. Go listen to it and check out Stephen's new song, E-Train. We did quite a lot of work in that. We recut that. That was on the first album. And we got to do some things with it we didn't get a chance to do back when we did the record, and it was just something we always wanted to do, so we put it together, and it's real nice. I'm real proud of that track. And also, Don't Throw Your Love Away. I really like that track, too. I think I did some nice guitar work on both of them.
And, speaking about the Beatles, don't you have a Beatle tune in this new album?
We do. It's an extra song we added that Pete did, and I Love Her.
That's a great, it's a beautiful song.
Pete actually got to play with Paul. He did the Billy Joel Shea Stadium concert when Paul joined in. I got a snapshot of him and Paul singing together. But also something else about Pete. See, Pete was Phil Ramone's number one voice. Anytime Phil Ramone would produce somebody, it was the Lennons. He worked with the Lennon, John and Julian, and of course Billy Joel, of course, and then just anybody that Ramone produced, he'd call Pete in to come in and be a backup singer, And
wow.
He just had one of those.
I did not know that. So you played at was that with McCartney? Was that Citi Field or Shea Stadium?
No, Pete did, not me. Pete.
Okay.
At Shea Stadium. Yeah, Pete was working with Billy Joel at the time.
Right.
Yeah. And
all right. So just
amazing voice.
So just give us a quick, a brief lineup of the band, just in case our listeners aren't aware. So give us the roster.
Okay, well, it's Michael Shreves on drums, Stephen Dees on bass, Pete Hewlett on vocals and guitar, and me on vocals and guitar. And, of course, Stephen's on vocals and bass. Yeah. And keyboards. Stephen and I both played a little keyboards on some of these songs.
Very nice. So what do you have down the pipeline? What's next on your agenda?
Well, I just heard on one of the guys' interviews that there's some talk about they want to do an EP soon. So
really,
obviously, yeah, we have had such a great time doing this record and being back around each other, and they're all just really beautiful cats, man, and we have that camaraderie, and that magic just happens when we get together. You know, it's just a really happy time. You know.
And you also have your own commercial business studio, right? You produce TV commercials?
I do, yes. I have a nice, I have an even newer studio now that we just put together in Charleston, West Virginia. And, yeah, I've done a lot of radio commercials and music, and we have a wonderful state-of-the-art room now, computer-based recording. And, yes, I do that on the side, yeah.
Well, excellent. I wish you best of luck on the new album, and thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. Thank
you so much, man. I appreciate it. Appreciate you having me, and go out and give it a listen. And remember, NovoCombo.com. I'm trying to say Novo dot. I don't know. NovoCombo.com. Yeah, check it out.
Jack Griffith, guitarist, vocalist. The new album, 45 West, 55th. Buy it now. Get your copy now. Until next week, happy collecting to all.